I was always the disappointment in my family. My brother Thomas was the golden child excelling at everything he touched. Our parents never missed a chance to remind me how different we were. So when I accidentally discovered a thick folder filled with surveillance photos of me, I was shocked, but not entirely surprised. My own brother had hired someone to document my failures. Little did he know that his plan would reveal a truth I had been hiding for years. If you have ever been betrayed by a family member, drop a comment below. Before I dive into this wild story, let me know where you are watching from. And do not forget to like and subscribe to catch more stories of family drama turned success. Growing up in a wealthy Boston suburb, our family seemed perfect from the outside. My father built his reputation as one of the most successful attorneys in Massachusetts, while my mother ran her own thriving medical practice. Between them, they set impossibly high standards for their children. Thomas, 5 years my senior, had no trouble meeting those standards. He was the embodiment of everything our parents valued: analytical, disciplined, and ambitious. From my earliest memories, I existed in his shadow. When Thomas brought home straight, as my B-plus grades were met with questions about why I could not be more like my brother. When he won the state chess championship at 12, my artwork displayed at a local youth exhibition barely received acknowledgement. My parents attended every debate, competition, and tennis match Thomas participated in, arriving early to get the best seats. Meanwhile, they found excuses to miss my art showcases, claiming busy schedules or important meetings. Our home was decorated with Thomas's trophies and certificates. My few achievements were relegated to my bedroom walls, or sometimes the refrigerator door, only to be replaced by his latest accomplishment within days. The educational paths chosen for us reflected their priorities. Thomas was sent to Lexington Academy, an elite private school known for sending graduates to Ivy League universities. I attended the local public school, which had a decent arts program that I genuinely enjoyed, though my parents considered it second-rate. Despite the obvious favoritism, Thomas and I maintained a complicated relationship. He would help me with math homework when I struggled, patiently explaining concepts our parents had no time to address. But these tutoring sessions always ended with remarks like, "This is basic stuff, Jamar. You should grasp this immediately." His assistance came wrapped in judgment, making me simultaneously grateful and resentful. I remember one particular incident when I was 14. Some kids from school were making fun of my art portfolio at a community event. Thomas, who happened to be there, stepped in and defended me, telling them off with the confident authority he always carried. I felt a surge of gratitude and brotherly connection. That evening, however, he told our parents I needed to develop a thicker skin and focus on more practical skills, since my artistic sensibilities made me an easy target for ridicule. That double standard became the pattern of our relationship. Public support, followed by private criticism. Defense, followed by judgment. As we grew older, the gap between us widened. Thomas followed our father into law, graduating summa cum laude from Harvard Law School. Meanwhile, I discovered my passion for digital design during a required computer class. While my parents and Thomas saw computers merely as tools for research and writing papers, I recognized their creative potential. At 14, I began teaching myself graphic design using free online resources and tutorials. I stayed up late experimenting with digital art, web design, and eventually basic programming. The digital world offered an escape from constant comparison and criticism. By 16, I was secretly taking on small freelance projects, designing logos and simple websites for local businesses. I set up a separate bank account without my parents knowing, depositing my modest earnings and saving them for what I increasingly saw as my inevitable departure from the family. During high school, while Thomas was thriving at Columbia for his undergraduate studies, I maintained decent grades while pouring my real energy into building technical skills. I taught myself JavaScript, Python, and design principles, creating a portfolio I shared with no one in my family. Our parents pushed me toward business school, considering it the most practical compromise for someone who clearly was not cut out for law or medicine. I reluctantly agreed, knowing it might provide useful knowledge while buying time to develop my real passions. Those 4 years at Boston University were a constant balancing act. I studied business administration as promised, but loaded my electives with computer science and design courses. I interned at tech startups rather than the financial firms my parents recommended. All the while, I continued building my skills and client base through freelance work, careful to keep this part of my life hidden from family scrutiny. Thomas, by then an associate at a prestigious law firm, would call weekly to check on my progress, always ending conversations with unsolicited advice about connecting with the right people or pursuing more ambitious goals. What he never understood was that I was ambitious, just not in ways that matched our family's narrow definition of success. The breaking point came on my college graduation night. What should have been a celebration turned into the final confrontation that would set me free. My parents hosted a dinner at their country club, inviting family friends who were all eager to hear about my plans, to join a management training program at a consulting firm, a position my father had arranged through his connections. Instead, I announced my decision to pursue digital design and software development full-time. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by my mother's nervous laugh as she attempted to pass it off as a joke. When she realized I was serious, the evening imploded. "We did not invest in your education for you to become a computer technician," my father said, his voice low but sharp. Thomas, ever the mediator but always on their side, suggested a compromise. Perhaps Jamar could work at the firm while pursuing this hobby on weekends. The connections would be valuable regardless. "This is not a hobby," I insisted. "I have been building this skill set for years. I already have clients and a portfolio." My revelation about the secret freelance work only made things worse. My parents saw it as deception rather than initiative. The argument escalated until my father delivered his ultimatum: accept the consulting position or forfeit their financial support. That night, I packed my essentials, withdrew my secret savings, and booked a one-way flight to San Francisco. I left with exactly $512, a used laptop, and an unwavering determination to prove myself on my own terms. The first months in San Francisco were brutal. I shared a cramped two-bedroom apartment in the Mission District with 3 other struggling creative professionals. The rent consumed most of my savings within weeks. I took a morning job as a barista at a local coffee shop, working from 5 a.m. until noon. Evenings were spent as a sales associate at an electronics store. Between shifts, I hunched over my laptop at the coffee shop, utilizing the free Wi-Fi to hunt for freelance gigs and expand my portfolio. My roommates, all pursuing their own dreams in photography, music, and writing, became my first real support system outside the shadow of my family. We shared meals, contacts, and encouragement, forming bonds stronger than those I had experienced growing up. Sleep became a luxury, as I maintained this schedule 7 days a week. Some nights, I managed only 3 or 4 hours before the coffee shop alarm forced me back to consciousness. The physical exhaustion was overwhelming, but the freedom to pursue my own path provided a different kind of energy. 6 months into this routine, I attended a local tech meetup, hoping to network with potential clients. Instead, I met Marcus Jenkins, a 55-year-old software developer who had built and sold 2 successful companies. When I showed him my portfolio and explained my background, he saw potential where my family had only seen rebellion. "You have got raw talent and a good eye," Marcus said after reviewing my work. "But more importantly, you understand how design and functionality intersect. That is rarer than you might think." Marcus became my mentor, meeting weekly to review my projects and suggest improvements. He taught me about user experience, product development, and the business side of tech that my freelance work had not exposed me to. During one of our sessions, I shared my frustration with the project management tools available to small businesses. Most were either too complex and expensive, or too simplistic to be useful. "I have been thinking about creating something better," I explained. "An intuitive platform that helps small businesses manage their brand content and customer communication without needing a marketing department." Marcus listened intently, asking pointed questions about features, target users, and potential challenges. By the end of our conversation, he was as excited about the idea as I was. "This has potential," he said. "Start building a prototype. When you have something to show, I will introduce you to some investors I know." For the next 3 months, I scaled back my freelance work to focus on building the prototype. I survived on instant noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, often coding until sunrise. The coffee shop manager noticed my exhaustion and reduced my hours, which cut into my already minimal income, but provided more development time. By the time I had a working prototype, I had exactly $27 in my bank account and was 2 weeks behind on rent. My roommates covered for me, believing in the project almost as much as I did. Marcus arranged a meeting with 2 angel investors he knew. I prepared for weeks, refining my pitch and rehearsing answers to potential questions. The meeting was scheduled at a small conference room in a co-working space. I arrived 2 hours early, too nervous to sit at home. The investors were impressed with the prototype but concerned about my lack of business experience. They asked about my team, my go-to-market strategy, and my financial projections. Thanks to my business degree and Marcus's coaching, I answered confidently. Still, they passed on the opportunity. So did the next investor. And the next. After 15 rejections, I was ready to give up and focus on rebuilding my freelance business. Then Marcus introduced me to Sofia Rodriguez, a successful entrepreneur who had recently sold her e-commerce platform. Unlike previous investors, Sofia immediately understood the problem I was trying to solve. She had experienced the same frustrations with brand management tools while building her company. "I would have paid good money for something like this," she said after testing the prototype. 2 days later, she offered $50,000 in seed funding in exchange for 15% equity. That investment allowed me to rent a small office in a co-working space and hire 2 developers. Raj, a brilliant back-end programmer I met at a hackathon, and Lena, a front-end specialist who had recently graduated from a coding bootcamp. Both took significant pay cuts to join the company, believing in the vision and the equity I offered. For the next 6 months, we worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week. We ate most meals at our desks, occasionally sleeping on the office couch when deadlines loomed. The prototype evolved into a full-featured platform, incorporating feedback from each test user we could convince to try it. After endless iterations, we launched a beta version with 100 small businesses across various industries. The initial feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Users praised the intuitive interface and the seamless integration of brand management, content scheduling, and customer communication tools. Just as momentum was building, disaster struck. A major server failure corrupted our database, resulting in data loss for approximately 30% of our beta users. Panicked calls and emails flooded in. Sofia demanded an emergency meeting, questioning whether the team was capable of handling a product at this scale. Raj, Lena, and I worked 72 hours straight to recover what data we could and implement an emergency fix. I personally called every affected user, taking full responsibility and offering 3 months of free service once we resolved the issues. During those sleepless nights, I made a difficult decision. Rather than patching the existing system, we needed to rebuild the core architecture from scratch. This would delay our official launch by at least 2 months and require additional funding. When I presented this plan to Sofia, she was skeptical. The additional investment was substantial, and the delay would burn through our limited runway faster than anticipated. After tense negotiations, she agreed to introduce us to her network of investors. But with a warning, this was our last chance. The rebuilt platform launched 6 months later with enhanced security, improved performance, and several new features our beta users had requested. The response exceeded our expectations. Within weeks, we had signed contracts with over 300 small businesses. Our revenue, though modest, provided a path to sustainability. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Health First, a national healthcare provider with thousands of local clinics, was struggling to maintain brand consistency across their network. Their marketing director discovered our platform through one of our small business clients and reached out to explore a potential enterprise solution. Customizing our platform for their needs required intense effort, but the potential contract made it worthwhile. After 3 rounds of presentations and a successful pilot program at 5 clinics, Health First signed a 2-year contract worth $2.1 million. That contract transformed our company overnight. We moved from our cramped co-working space to proper offices. Our team expanded from 3 to 25 within months. Industry publications began featuring our success story, though. I consistently declined personal interviews or photographs, preferring to let our product speak for itself. Despite the professional success, I maintained my distance from family. Our company DesignSync intentionally bore no connection to my name. I established a holding company for my ownership shares, further obscuring my role from casual investigation. These precautions were not merely about privacy but self-preservation. My contact with family remained minimal and superficial. I called my parents on major holidays and birthdays, keeping conversations brief and vague. When asked about my work, I described myself as a designer at a small tech company, suggesting modest success at best. They rarely pressed for details, seemingly content with the confirmation of their low expectations. Thomas, now a partner at his law firm, dominated these family calls, with updates about his cases, home renovation, and vacation properties. He never missed an opportunity to highlight the contrast between our paths, asking questions like, "Still enjoying your creative work? The firm always has openings if you want something more substantial." I maintained this facade even as DesignSync secured Series A funding at a $60 million valuation, then Series B at over $150 million. We expanded internationally, opening offices in London and Singapore. I purchased a penthouse apartment in San Francisco and invested in several startups founded by promising designers and developers I wanted to support. The charade might have continued indefinitely if not for a careless mistake. During a company retreat in Lake Tahoe, a team member tagged me in a social media post showing our leadership team beside my recently purchased vintage Porsche. Though I rarely use social media, I had maintained accounts to keep minimal tabs on family and old friends. Thomas, ever vigilant, noticed the post before I could untag myself. He called immediately, his voice carrying a mix of suspicion and accusation. "Nice car for someone working at a small tech company," he remarked coldly. "That looks like a 96 Porsche 911 Turbo. Those run about 200,000 in good condition." I scrambled for an explanation, claiming the car belonged to my girlfriend, a successful attorney. Thomas pressed for details about her practice, forcing me to fabricate an increasingly elaborate story. The conversation ended awkwardly, with Thomas making it clear he did not believe me. 2 weeks later, while returning from a late meeting, I noticed a man photographing me as I entered my building. The same man appeared outside our office the following day. After the third sighting, I asked our head of security to investigate. The results confirmed my suspicions. The man was Alex Parker, a private investigator with a reputation for corporate espionage and high-end surveillance. Our security team could not immediately determine who had hired him, but the timing suggested Thomas was the most likely candidate. Rather than confront the situation, I maintained my routine while increasing security measures. For nearly 2 months, I knew I was being watched, but proceeded as if unaware, curious to see how far Thomas would take this investigation. The answer came on a Tuesday afternoon, when my assistant announced Alex Parker was in the lobby requesting a meeting. Against my security team's advice, I agreed to see him. Alex was not what I expected. In his early 50s, he had the relaxed demeanor of someone who had seen it all without being hardened by the experience. He placed a thick folder on my desk without preamble. "Your brother hired me to investigate your finances," he said. "He suspected illegal activity, possibly money laundering, or drug distribution." What I found instead was quite impressive. He opened the folder, revealing comprehensive documentation of DesignSync's growth, my legitimate wealth, and the careful measures I had taken to separate my professional success from my personal identity. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Professional courtesy," he replied. "In 30 years of investigations, I have rarely seen someone build something this significant while maintaining such a low profile. Before I deliver my findings to your brother, I thought you deserved to know." There was something else in his expression, a question he was too professional to ask directly. "You want to know why I kept this from my family?" I stated. Alex nodded. "Usually, when people hide success, there are complicated reasons." For the first time in years, I found myself explaining the family dynamics, the constant comparisons, and the liberation of building something without their judgment or expectations. Alex listened without interruption. "Your brother will receive my report next week," he said finally. "What happens after that is between you and your family." As he stood to leave, he added, "For what it is worth, what you have built is extraordinary. Not just the company, but the life you created on your own terms." After he left, I sat alone in my office, contemplating the imminent collapse of the boundaries I had carefully constructed. I could continue hiding, perhaps move overseas to our Singapore office for an extended period. But the exhaustion of maintaining the deception suddenly outweighed the comfort it had provided. The next morning, I canceled my meetings and booked a flight to Boston. Without announcing my arrival, I drove directly from the airport to Thomas's downtown law office. His assistant attempted to block my unscheduled visit, but I walked past her desk with the confidence that now came naturally after years of leadership. Thomas looked up from his computer, momentarily confused by my presence. Before he could speak, I placed a copy of Alex's folder on his desk. "I believe you paid for this information," I said, taking a seat across from him, "though I suspect the final report contains more than you expected." His expression shifted from confusion to defensive anger. "I do not know what you are talking about." "Alex Parker," I replied calmly. "The private investigator you hired to follow me. He visited my office yesterday." Thomas's legal training failed him, as shock registered on his face. "He was not supposed to contact you, yet he did. So now we can have this conversation on my terms, rather than yours." Thomas leafed through the documents, his expression changing, as he absorbed the extent of what I had built. $150 million valuation, international offices. "Why would you hide this?" "Because success on my own terms was more important than validation from a family that never believed in me," I answered. "The question is, why did you feel the need to investigate me at all?" Thomas closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. For a moment he looked less like the confident attorney and more like the older brother I had once admired. "I saw the car, the clothes. I thought you might be involved in something illegal," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. "That is what you told yourself," I countered. "But we both know there is more to it." The silence stretched between us until Thomas finally spoke. "Do you have any idea what it is like to be the one everyone expects to succeed? To have every achievement treated as merely meeting expectations rather than exceeding them?" The irony of his complaint was not lost on me. "Try being the one everyone expects to fail." "I never failed," he continued, as if I had not spoken. "Law, review, partnership track, all of it. I did everything they wanted. Everything I was supposed to want. And then you just walked away, rejected it all, and apparently succeeded beyond anyone's imagination." Understanding dawned slowly. "You were not investigating me because you thought I was failing. You were investigating because you worried I might be happier than you." Thomas did not deny it. "You got freedom. I got expectations." For the first time I saw our shared childhood from his perspective. Where I had seen favoritism, he had experienced pressure. My perceived failures came with lowered expectations, while his success only raised the bar higher. "We should talk to Mom and Dad together," I suggested. "It is time to break this cycle." 2 hours later, we sat in our parents' living room, the folder open on the coffee table between us. Our mother cried when she realized the extent of my success and my deliberate concealment of it. Our father, ever stoic, remained silent throughout most of the conversation. "Why would you not share this with us?" she asked through tears. "We would have been so proud." "Would you?" I challenged gently. "Or would you have found ways to compare it unfavorably to Thomas's achievements? Would you have suggested how I could have done better, aimed higher, been more like him?" Her protest died, unspoken, as truth registered in her expression. For what it is worth, my father finally said, "I always thought you were talented. I just worried about your future." "My future was never in danger," I replied. "Only your vision of what it should be." The conversation lasted well into the night, painful at times but necessary. Thomas admitted his growing dissatisfaction with corporate law, a career chosen to please our parents rather than himself. Our parents confronted their pattern of comparison and conditional approval that had damaged both their sons in different ways. No single conversation could heal decades of family dynamics, but it was a start. In the months that followed, I established a scholarship fund for creative students pursuing entrepreneurial paths. Thomas began exploring his long-suppressed interest in environmental law. Our parents tentatively at first began showing interest in our choices rather than our achievements. 2 years after the confrontation, Thomas joined me in creating a foundation that paired established business leaders with young creative entrepreneurs, providing both mentorship and seed funding. Our complementary skills made us surprisingly effective partners once we stopped seeing each other as competition. Looking back now, I realize that success is not measured by bank accounts or company valuations. True success comes from the freedom to define your own path and the courage to walk it despite others' doubts. The approval I sought from my family mattered less once I fully approved of myself and my choices. Family relationships are complicated, full of patterns established long before we are conscious of them. Breaking those patterns requires honesty, often painful, but always necessary for growth. Sometimes, the people who try to expose what they believe are your failures accidentally reveal your greatest strengths instead. If my story resonates with you, I would love to hear about your own experiences with family expectations and finding your own path. Have you ever had someone try to undermine you, only to strengthen your resolve? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found value in this journey, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that following their own path is not just okay, but essential. Thank you for listening. And remember, success is sweetest when it is defined by your own standards, not someone else's expectations.